Hello, creators, and welcome to Rediscovering Be Something Wonderful, where we revisit timeless classics from deep within our video archives. What if you've never actually lived in a reality of lack? What if you've only been seeing the fulfillment that you already are through the blurry lens of your current assumptions? In this video, you'll discover a profound breakthrough from a subscriber whose 10-year journey led to one extraordinary realization. There have never been two stories, one of lack and one of fulfillment. There has only been one, I am. You'll discover why desire isn't a promise of something you'll receive someday, but a notification of what is already yours. Why the bridge of incidence unfolds naturally when you stand firm as I am. And why fulfillment isn't waiting somewhere in your future. It is the only reality that has ever been true. Now, let's rediscover the extraordinary simplicity of consciously creating the life of your wildest dreams. Welcome back to Be Something Wonderful. Creators, welcome back. Another powerful video today. This is our third in about a day and a half that are coming from either clients or subscribers, or both clients and subscribers, about their realizations, their metaphysical realizations, the lesson behind it, and their manifestations. Yesterday I released one about that client or that client and subscriber that manifested that ideal table in the restaurant in the show. That was a powerful lesson. Then early this morning, I released another video on the membership channel, another powerful realization, another powerful metaphysical lesson about standing in your reality. Here is our third one. This client, it was a very detailed email that said it's about manifesting a specific person or an SP. And she talked a little bit about it, but it was more about the metaphysics, the metaphysical lesson, her realizations that changed the entire way that she looks at life in reality. I want to hit this. And so here's the first big one that she had. There are never two stories, only one, the fulfillment. Hear this, right? We always say tell a new story. Her realization that there's only one story, and that she's reading it wrong. She's telling the story wrong. We'll get this. Remember I talked about the movie Solaris and the character Chris Calvin saying, I remembered her wrong. She's saying there are only two stories. There are never two stories. There's only one fulfillment. And the current 3D experience is just me reading the one and only story while being long-sighted and keeping the script really close to my face, and seeing it blurry, refusing to move back a bit and see the bigger picture. She's seeing the story up close. It's the only one story, the true story fulfillment, but we're reading it wrong. We're reading it with our bad eyesight, right? We're only seeing that less than 1% of reality. She's keeping the script really close to her, right? To her face. She's seeing it blurry, refusing to move back and see the bigger picture. In other words, I'm reading it wrong. I'm telling it wrong, like that movie Solaris. That's a big realization. Let's hit this a little bit more. So she says, my name is Mary. Now I changed her name, clearly, right, for this video, but she says, my name is Mary. Thanks to you, I am that I am, going by the name Mary. Hear how she's disidentifying from this 3D script, right, and understanding that she's much greater than it. She goes, I get it. And she goes on and says, I understand everything. Fulfillment is our natural state of being. Fulfillment is who we are. It's all done. It's already done, and we choose which part of that fulfillment we want to experience here and now. You've said this so many times, and there are only so many words, but you've combined them in various ways to make everything click. We've talked about this, right? I think one of you were talking about my word salads, and some of you said I love salads. Well, there are only so many words to describe it, but the way she puts it together today, and which I am now presenting to you, is powerful, right? The SP story, the specific person, is powerful, right? After 10 years of creating a story of non-fulfillment. In other words, reading the story wrong, telling the story wrong. That remember, she met this SP when she was 17. Now, 10 years later, he reaches out. Right there, it's on again. And this is that, after hot and cold, after everything. And so there's not much about her story, about the SP. It's because it's so much bigger than that, and she gets this. So let's hit this. And she goes, here I am using exactly the same words, the word salad, right? But they don't sound the same anymore. Hear this. The story doesn't sound the same. Reality doesn't look the same. The words don't look the same. It's movement. They have clicked, she said. This reminds me of the moment when we assume our wish is fulfilled, but the reality looks the same. Except it isn't. It's very different, right? When we get to that conviction and we stand in that conviction, but reality hasn't changed, but it has. That's the same realization she has here. Right? It's very different. It has changed. Right? They may look like the same words, but the meaning to her is different. Huge aha moment, she says. The urge to tell. She said, I had the urge, right, during this off and on thing, I had the urge to tell it like it is or how it is before telling it how I want it to be. In other words, we tell it like it is, believing those are facts. And then we have this story about how we want it to be, and we separate those, believing there's two stories, how it is and how we want it to be. Wow! In other words, how you want it to be is how it really is. This is her realization. There's only fulfillment. There's only how you want it to be. That other story of non-fulfillment is pure fiction, right? Right, this is big. How you want it to be is how it really is. It's the only reality. That one story is the only fulfillment. We're going to hit this a little bit more as we cover this. She goes, believing strongly that what I see around me is fact and true current story, while seeing fulfillment as something in the future or hard to get, or reading it more like a fairy tale. Wow. Do you see that? In other words, I'm reading it wrong. I'm telling it wrong. She realized this. I'm locking myself in the frame. Remember that reality is just frames, right? Physical 3D reality, these are just these frames, right, that you're moving through. These frozen frames, these events, people, places, and things, these events, in this one moment of creation. She goes, I'm locking myself in the frame of, okay, here I am now, and I want to be there. But here I am now, she says. I want to be there, but here I am now. This is my current true reality. This is what I don't want. She realizes that she's looking at it and saying, yeah, I'm here now. I want to get there, but I'm here now. I keep freezing that frame. I keep telling that story. That opened my eyes to two huge perspective-changing things, and we're going to hit this. One, there's only one story, the fulfillment. I love how she says that, the fulfillment. It's only one story. We're just reading it wrong. We get it up close. We can't see it. We're not moving. We're identifying with it. We're immersed in it. And two, the bridge, referring to the bridge of incidence, taught by Neville Goddard, right? The path of least resistance. The bridge is never mine to create. Hear this realization. I love this. Because with every assumption, I can only enter a different reality or belief, right? Not create the bridge. In other words, yeah, you shift realities with your assumption, with that, but it's only when you stand in that assumption, stand in that conviction that the bridge happens. Right? The bridge happens as I stand in the now, I am that. As I stand in that conviction, as I stand in that assumption, that creates the bridge. And so it is. This is because I am that I am. I am God. God becomes it in the declaring of it. I claim it and thus I become. That's how you get from the messy middle to the divine constant isness. These are her words. Powerful words. Do you hear that? Right? That it's not that the bridge is never mine to create, because with every assumption I can only create a different reality. But I don't create the bridge. The bridge happens when I stand in that assumption, stand in that reality, and make it the only reality, the only story, the one story of fulfillment. So let's hit it. It's about my SP whom I met 10 years ago when I was 17 years old. Right? So now she gets contact with this SP after 10 years. I was in a reality where I was wanting and hoping, but never being. She really got this. Going in circles, having similar results of almost manifestations, hot and cold, almost happening. But this is what she says. I always knew, always had the conviction that I would spend my life with him. But my inner conversations of fear of non-fulfillment kept me in the illusion of linear time. Exactly 10 years later, he contacted me. So she created this illusion, that story, that second story of non-fulfillment that doesn't exist, right? That totally fictional story. I started to understand that I have been with him the whole time. Hear this. I love the way she worded this. That our relationship lives within me. That story lives within her. I saw many versions of him, hot and cold, because I was not the only true version of myself. Wow. She really got it. And I was not the only true version of myself. And then I let go of the fear. I let go of non-fulfillment. I let go of the non-story, the non-reality. Wow, powerful. So let's hit it a little bit more. I left the story of non-fulfillment, right? And I left the story, and now I'm allowing the only one, right? She goes, now I'm allowing the only one, period. The doubt and fear make no sense anymore because with every fiber of my being, I only feel my fulfillment. I only feel my conviction. I finally feel myself as fulfillment. I see now that it's not even about telling it the way I want it to be because I am it. I stopped fearing the impossible, the non-reality or the non-fulfillment. Hear the way she's wording this, right? With every fiber of my being, I feel my fulfillment. But more than that, she feels herself as fulfillment. She's not feeling the wish fulfilled, she's feeling as it. I see now that it's not even about telling it the way you want it to be. She's saying it's not even about telling the new story the way you want it to be because I am it. I am the story. I stopped fearing the impossible, non-fulfillment. She goes, I stopped fearing the impossible, non-fulfillment, the non-reality of non-fulfillment. This is how it all came to her, right? She stopped fearing that it's impossible. She was fearing the impossible, right? It's not even that fulfillment is possible, it just is, right? The idea of possible or not possible is just a linear idea, a horizontal idea of reality. In your vertical existence, in your vertical reality, in the vertical nature of who you are, there is only fulfillment. It's not possible or impossible, it is. Do you see it? The idea of possibility and impossibility only appear in the non-reality or non-fulfillment. This is how it all came to me. As I was falling asleep after listening to one of your amazing videos, I felt strange. Well, yeah, and hear this idea again. I felt strange. She felt something different. Just like in the video yesterday, that client subscriber was talking about that conviction that he felt when he knew he had the table. 3 times they're telling him it's sold out, right? Like the story that I told you about Neville, Goddard, right? In Aida, that opera that when he bought tickets for his brothers. The same idea. It came to me as I was falling asleep after listening to one of your amazing, I love that you're falling asleep to my videos. I don't know how you guys do it with me talking so loud, but that's great. I felt strange. So she felt that strange sensation. She goes, I was falling asleep, but at the same time, I felt fully awake. Falling asleep, but at the same time felt fully awake. My eyes were closed, but just before I drifted off, I felt my eyes wide open. But here's what she says. But I'm not talking about my physical eyes, Tom. She made a statement here. I felt my real self, my huge I am that never sleeps. I saw it all. I felt myself standing in the knowing. And she put all of this in bold print. Fulfillment was never a possibility. Wow. Do you hear this? Hear what she's saying here? Eyes are wide open, but not her physical eyes. She's standing in that I am. Fulfillment was never a possibility, but the only reality. In other words, the idea of possible and not possible only exists in the horizontal experience of reality, in the linear experience of reality. Fulfillment, it wasn't about fulfillment being a possibility. It is that it's the only reality. It goes beyond possible and not possible. It's the only reality. And that non-fulfillment is only possible to feel as a possibility and experience in 3D. Non-fulfillment is only possible in that 3D horizontal reality as a possibility, as a possible experience. Wow, do you hear this? Fulfillment is not a possibility, it's the only reality. Possible and impossible are only experiences in the 3D linear horizontal reality or story. Wow. So let's hit this. So non-fulfillment as a possibility and experience in 3D, hear this, is not because I need it in order to learn something. So this idea of non-fulfillment as a possibility, or the 3D experience, or the horizontal experience of reality, what she's talking about here, it's not because I need it in order to learn something. In other words, in order to be fulfilled. I don't need it to that, but to be able to feel that which I am. Do you hear it? That's what the 3D horizontal linear experience of this idea, this possibility of non-fulfillment. In the absence of something else, all that is not. Neil Donald Walsh, Conversation with God. In the absence of knowing something else, you are supreme. You are all that is. But how do you know that experientially? Experientially, you know it not to fulfill yourself, not to learn a lesson, but to feel that which I am. Right? There's nothing to learn, to fulfill, only to remember. Do you see it? There's nothing to fulfill. You are moving as fulfillment. That I am here to tell the story of who I am. But, oh yeah, and this is another big one. She had so many nuggets of gold in her email. There's nothing to learn, in other words, fulfill, only to remember that I am not here to tell the story of who I am, but to allow it to be told. Woo! That's huge. That's the story of Jesus talking to his disciples. Who do you say I am? Asking them twice. But who do you say I am? In other words, allow that story to be told. Don't tell the story. Remember, the disciples were telling the story. You're John the Baptist. You're one of the prophets. You're Elijah. You're Jeremiah. Remember the Baptist? And then he goes, no. But who do you say I am? In other words, allow the story of your I am to be told through you as you. Fulfillment to be told as you. This is so big. She goes, with my physical eyes closed, I smiled. I saw the 3D facts for what they really are. The perfect unfolding. If that doesn't give you chills, I don't know what does. That's incredible. That's her words, right? Incredible. So she says this, my attention to them, the facts or frames of 3D reality, my attention to them, right, breathes life into them. My attention to them, the facts or the frames of 3D reality, breathes life into them. My assumptions give context. So, I mean, you can tell she's a writer. She said she's a writer. Beautifully written, right? I love this. Each frame, she says, is like those pictures where you can see different things depending on how you rotate them. You know those pictures where you can see different things as you rotate them. And she jokes here, how do I see now? An old lady, or what do I see now? An old lady or a princess? And she was laughing. That was the moment I got up and began laughing, right? I now see the true colors, as they say, of everything. And they're always the colors of fulfillment and love. Big realization. And here was her big realization. It was never about anything I desired. And we're going to go into this in this last part of the lesson. It was never about anything I desired. Wow. Hear this. Why does she say that? Well, you got some of the context. Here's what she says. So big. And even on the thumbnail, I created a thumbnail to sort of reflect this, a fun thumbnail on the video. The desire itself is like a notification telling me which part of my fulfillment I'd like to feel experientially. It was never about the desire itself. The desire itself is like a notification telling me which part of my fulfillment, which part of all that I am, which part of the God that I am that I would like to feel now experientially, that I would like to know experientially, right? The feel and know. Remember, the feel and know is what Source does. What part would I like to know or feel experientially? There's nothing to do because it's all done. Whatever I feel inspired to do is because I'm moving through frames, right? Through frames and experiencing my chosen fulfillment. In other words, she's awareness moving over those frames, but I'm moving as fulfillment, right? Not as someone who's about to feel their wish fulfilled, or is seeking to feel their wish fulfilled, or is seeking fulfillment. She's moving as fulfillment, even if that's the experience and unreality of non-fulfillment. You see that? I'm moving through frames and experiencing my chosen fulfillment, even if that chosen fulfillment is an experience or an unreality of non-fulfillment. Do you see it? Even if it's a judged experience of non-fulfillment, she's still moving through frames and experiencing her chosen fulfillment. Wow. Aha. I'm moving through frames of 3D reality as fulfillment. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, thank you. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for liking and sharing and commenting on the videos. Thank you for subscribing to our Facebook group, the Be Something Wonderful Ambassadors, at facebook.com/groups/Be Something Wonderful. Thank you for following us on Instagram and Twitter at Tom Kearin, and for joining our membership channel. There's a link below. Don't forget, on this Sunday, May 21st, 2023 at 9 a.m. Pacific Coast Standard Time, right here live in Las Vegas with me in our fourth live stream. I'm going to answer your questions, some of your questions, get to some of your questions. Send your questions to info@besomethingwonderful.com ahead of time, and we'll get to a lot of those questions in the live stream on this Sunday morning. Creators, with great love, with great light and infinite gratitude, this is Tom Kearin with Be Something Wonderful. We'll see you soon.